Okay, so I used titanium buff. This is titanium buff, burnt sienna, raw umber, and cerulean blue. So I used titanium buff with, I just put a bit of touch of raw umber in here.
Which blue did you use? Sorry. Which blue?
Cerulean blue. And with a round brush, small round brush, I just put, you know, kind of lines in here. Sometimes I would add burnt sienna to titanium buff to tone it down, and then just go over, and before I did this, I used a white pencil crayon to put the lines in, and then I went over with the brush. So this is just the, I did one layer, and you can see here that the first layer I used, it was more of kind of titanium buff, but there was a lot more burnt sienna in there, because I didn't want the first layer to be too strong, just enough for me to see it, see the lines, but I didn't want them to be overwhelmingly strong. So using the titanium buff alone was too light. Then what I did is I started playing around with the colors. So I would take burnt sienna, put it with my titanium buff. Let's say this is not done yet. So let's take that one here. And then I would go in, fill it. This is burnt sienna and titanium buff. Not a lot of titanium buff in there. And then I would take raw umber, the tip of my brush, and just put in the raw umber a bit, like halfway maybe, just so it's kind of gives it that old weathered look. Because look, this is burnt sienna and titanium buff right now. See how clean it is? So just to tone it down, I would just go in with a bit of raw umber in there, just a bit. Same thing with the blue. So sometimes with the, see this one here, the blue it's very strong and clean. So I would take cerulean, raw umber, just a bit of raw umber, not much, and a bit of titanium buff. Raw umber just to tone down the cerulean, to make it more earthy. And then go in and put that color in. So let's say, let's put it here. And if I find it's too light or too dark or too saturated, we'll go in with raw umber and just tone it down. So just a kind of a couple. We don't have to do the whole thing, but you see this blue is tying in with the rest of the blues that we have around. So it's nice, and it's a nice detail. So we will just continue adding these colors around, maybe here. Okay, let's say another one here. So they don't look like they're even, you know, blue here, blue here, blue here. So I'm gonna pick up some burnt sienna, and let's put it here just to in between those two blues. Because I've noticed that the colors are kind of random in that, in the reference, you know, in those bricks. So I didn't want the bricks here, the colors to be too even. Now with cerulean blue, I'm sorry, with burnt sienna, because it's earth tone already, it's like a brown. I don't really have to play around with adding more raw umber or, you know, any of that. So I could just put it just the way it is. And
Are you
insert-
putting any raw umber, not raw, yeah, are you putting any raw umber just on its own?
no, no, I haven't used raw umber on its own. I'm not sure if it might be too dark. But I could mix raw umber and cerulean. And by the way, this is a lighter cerulean, so it's the cerulean with a bit of burnt titanium buff. So I can just put, see, this is not bad. This is good. This is good. This is like burnt sienna and raw umber. And in between, it's a good color to anchor all of the other colors. So let's go. Oh, let's go here and just do that. Now, let's say I'll take some blue right now. See my brush? I didn't clean my brush. I just left it just the way it is with the burnt sienna on it. And I'm going to blue. See, the blue now is toned down. It's more earthy because of the burnt sienna. And I'm gonna come here and put some blue in here. I'm trying to keep the blues away from each other, not to put them too much near. This blue is too clean. This is better. Let's put one here. Just take a touch of titanium buff. That's good. Maybe blue here. And that's an earthy blue. Yeah, I think it's good. It's good. Okay. It doesn't take long. It just needs patience. And it's actually fun. You know, if you put some music on and you just sit there and do a couple, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be done all at the same time. Oh, geez, wrong one. The more you do, the nicer it looks. So now this is the same. This is titanium buff and burnt sienna. And I'm just putting with a round brush, freehand, doesn't have to be perfect. And we'll just divide them, bricks. And we'll do the same thing, just add some blues in, you know, certain places, and not as much as this. I'd see the colors in there are less. Those bricks are not that colorful. The thing is, it's good that it's on a burnt sienna wall, I mean, background, so we don't have to do a lot of painting in here, or from time to time, add a bit of raw umber and just put that raw umber in here somewhere. Mix raw umber with now cerulean blue and maybe put one here. There, that's not bad. That's good. That's good. Let's do that. Good. There. Just a couple here and there. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's it. So this is yellow ochre. I mixed yellow ochre with cerulean blue, and it's more yellow ochre than blue. And I'm just going to highlight this. The reason I didn't use yellow is just I don't want this to be too strong, the highlight. And I'm using the corner of my brush. That will camouflage a bit the brick. Now, let's use a bit of that titanium buff in here. Wow. Titanium buff made it a bit flat, but at least, I mean, I can see some of these little leaves. Still, I still like the color better than using yellow. I think yellow might be a bit too much for this here, because you don't want to draw attention to this, but you want it to camouflage and to soften the brick.
What about Naples yellow? Would that be too strong as well?
Yeah, Naples yellow, flat and strong. Yeah. Okay, so this is burnt sienna and titanium buff, and all I'm doing with the corner of my brush right here, just adding a bit of highlights in here.
Can you move it up, Leo?
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just kind of dabbing those highlights. Okay, don't put too much highlight at the bottom, just here. I just added here a bit of highlights, the same, just because I didn't want it to disconnect between both. But try not to put too much highlight at the bottom. keep the highlights in here. Because those highlights will point to the boat when we eventually when we start highlighting the boat as well. Okay. That's good. That gives it some movement in here. It was just dead in there. So now I have those. I'm going to actually put a bit of green in here as well, because it just, and this green is not strong because it's earthy.
Leo, I noticed that underneath the boat,
Mm.
past the blue shadow,
Mhm.
that you've moved the reflection further over. Like the red reflection, it's moved over.
Just 1 minute, 1 minute.